I'm not gonna clickbait you with this video. The change that improved my game about 700% was making the main character a sheep. Now this change may not seem like much, and to some it might even look like just a small reskin, but it transformed my game, and I'm gonna explain exactly how. Before explaining the change, I think it'd be best to start with the backstory. This game has quite humble beginnings, as it was for round 1 of GDKO, which is a long-form game jam consisting of many knockout-style rounds. A game jam is a competition to make a game in a short time frame, and this format encourages constant creativity, as using new themes helps to explore game mechanics that may not have been touched before. The first round of this jam was focused on the art, which looking at my past games was already a bad start. I'm no artist, but I can manage to get by in most cases. Then the theme was revealed, being spectacle. This was bad. At first sight of this theme, I blanked, my brain melted, and I went fully cross-eyed. I had no idea what to do, what direction to even take the game. I figured I'd give it a day to think it over, since I had 2 weeks to complete it after all. So the one day I was gonna brainstorm ideas quickly became 1 week. I was stumped on this theme, and I did not want to go the obvious route of doing a circus show or glasses or something like that. But then as I was the caveman hitting rocks together to get any spark of an idea, I struck a dry leaf somehow. I was gonna make a game about backflips. This idea on its own was pretty cool, but there was nothing to stop in your tracks for. Backflipping as a mechanic was already a great hook, and I could create a simple and fun game loop out of it. But it had one big thing missing: personality. The personality of a game is one the players will remember going forward. They're going to remember Overwatch for the gorilla. They're going to remember balloons for the monkeys. And now they're going to remember Baba backflip for the sheep. So changing the character from a person to a sheep instantly gave the game a unique hook, as well as giving it a silly personality. If I told a player,
"Hey, here's a game about backflips,"
it does not sound quite as sick as saying,
"Hey, here's a game where he plays a sheep doing backflips."
that sentence hasn't been heard before, and it'll get players curious right away. Then to add more personality, I allowed players to unlock hats within the game. This doubled down on the silly nature of the game, and players can customize their look a bit, which will add that level of attachment that keeps the player, well, playing longer. It also let me add some goofy silly hats, such as a small sheep on the sheep's head, or a toilet on its head. With this idea in mind, I started on the gameplay, wanting to have the feeling of easy to learn, hard to master. Think of a game like Getting Over It. I wanted my gameplay to be similar in style, where the player is learning the controls at the core of the game. And then on top of it, I added an arcade scoring system, and it helped to bring it all together. This resulted in a satisfying movement system, where the player first picks the power of the jump, and then the angle of the jump. Both of these are done using the spacebar. The system was easy to understand, easy to control, and it was only one button, and it was flexible enough for different obstacles. It also meant every jump on its own was a challenge, as one misstep will send you back to the beginning, losing all your progress from the last hour of work. And from my research, that's the most enjoyable part of Getting Over It. Just kidding, a big fall is where most players uninstall, so instead I made small levels within a 60-second timer to minimize that frustrating effect. Now it's time to make the obstacles, which I needed to have a simple design goal in mind for. I wanted them each to be based around the player learning the jump's mechanics, and not changing the jump at all. I didn't want any upgrade system or anything like that. So to start out, I just had a simple bush and a hay bale, which the player will just need to jump over. This small start will allow the player to learn how to control the jump without much of a threat, unless you consider a hay bale a threat, in which case a game about a sheep escaping a farm might not be for you. You know what is for you though? My Discord. You can talk to me about my games, or about games you're developing, or just playing, so go to the link in the description to join it. I then needed to get the player to have a goal, which I wanted to keep within the same design goal as before. I landed on having zones throughout the stage, which the sheep will need to land in to clear the level. These zones gave me the flexibility to change the accuracy needed for the landing, and I could increase the amount of them to make the timer a harder challenge, similar to how I decided it was a great idea to do a 2-week game jam in 5 days. I would not encourage this. This is a PSA to plan correctly and don't be an idiot like me. With these simple challenges for the players, I now needed to build out some levels, and I would need more obstacles to keep things fresh from level to level. I went the route of having each level being based around one specific challenge, keeping them all self-contained. With this idea, I then made a small brick wall for the player to hop on top of, which would have the player learning how to control the jump not only sideways, but how to land upright while traveling up and down. This is similar to how you should travel down below and hit that like button and subscribe button. The next level I then combined these ideas, having the player needing to land on top of a small fountain. This brought all the previous mechanics together in a nice way, and then after this, I could start getting interesting with the obstacles thrown at players. And after careful thought, I crossed out my idea of adding a Dark Souls boss and just added a trampoline. This trampoline adds a new mechanic to help keep the gameplay fresh. When developing a game, it's important to keep throwing twists to the core mechanics, or the player's gonna get bored. So this trampoline will act as a sort of double jump, but the player cannot stop on it to adjust their angle. This just means they need to account for the landing spot from the first jump, so the setup is just as important as the landing. It will also allow for some cool jumps, playing into the spectacle theme. The player will also need to land upright twice in a row, because I may not be an expert gymnast, but I think landing on your head is pretty suboptimal. The last obstacle I added was to counteract the player from being able to go full power for every jump, being a fire ramp. This adds the final point of spectacle for the theme as well, so it's a great addition for the final level. With all these obstacles, I designed the levels to be increasing in difficulty over the 5 levels, but didn't want it to be impossible for the average player. This is where I went to the overall design of the difficulty, where I leaned towards the easy side. I tested this by having my mom play it, and she only plays Candy Crush, so if she could beat it, I think you could beat it, and that's a threat. I even added some accessibility options to the menu to help players struggling, making it slower and easier to land, and some options for visibility. With the game being easier on purpose, I then needed to add additional challenges for players to work towards after mastering the movement. These challenges are simple in nature, so they can be understood in about 6 words max. I then tied unlocking the hats to these challenges, where you just need to complete one challenge for each level to unlock the hat for that level. This just encouraged the players to actually replay the levels, and gave a reason to actually do the challenges. The challenges ended up being simple things such as finishing the level in a certain amount of time, or only getting perfect landings, or even getting 200,000 score for the level. That last challenge may seem a bit out of reach, but that's to encourage players to use the last system I added, being combos. While making the game, I asked myself, what feels better than getting 1,000 points in Pac-Man? With my incredible intellect, I said getting 2,000 points in Pac-Man. To bring this idea into my own game, doing flips in air and landing as close as possible to upright will add to the combo meter, and then the player can get more points for landing. All these systems came together to create an incredible game loop, with the player needing to impress the audience in the background through flips and perfect landings. With the nature of the controls, however, every jump is a threat, and can be the one that stops the player in the level. The last bit I wanted to add was a simple thing that adds some replayability, a leaderboard system. I've never done a leaderboard system for my games before, and surprisingly, this went very smooth. This is a complete lie. I spent the entire day getting 10 silly numbers to display with the player's name. But now with this leaderboard system, I submitted the game, and I spent the next week playing other people's games and rating them. I do plan on fleshing this out with some more content and releasing the game on Steam alongside my other games. And if you want to see what gets added, be sure to go down below and hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And if you wanted to try the game out in its current state, you can click the link down below to try it out yourself. If you beat all 15 challenges, a secret hat will actually appear. And if you unlock that, I'll give you a high five or something, I don't know. But other than that, thanks for watching. See ya.